Good evening, Eugene. How are you?
I'm good, Jana. How are you tonight?
Great, great. Tonight we have an education lesson for everyone. So tonight we're going to put on teacher hats and talk about the difference of Catholic social justice and critical social justice. And again, how the term social justice has really been hijacked. And we're going to show the comparison of the two and show how contradictory the critical social justice happening in the schools, particularly those with a Catholic ethos, how contradictory that is to the Catholic social justice. So Eugene, I'll turn it over to you to share that research.
Most people would be familiar with the term social justice, right? And would have a certain view as to what that means. Now, we've covered it in a number of videos, and perhaps people might have missed some of those videos. The term critical social justice is something very definite. The critical social justice is another term for woke, actually, but it's an evolution of critical theory and postmodernism, and the principles, a kind of a marriage of the two. And it includes things like critical race theory, which people would be familiar with. It includes, queer theory, gender ideology, identity politics in general would be part of critical social justice, which wouldn't be part of historical Catholic social justice. I did a query off Grok. I also did it off ChatGPT and Google Gemini, the AI platform. So I asked them to provide a comparison of Catholic social justice and critical social justice. And they're all pretty close, actually. The best format I got was actually from Grok, because it put the two side by side rather than having them kind of one after the other. And so I think it broke it down pretty well. And that's what I've got here. So that's what we're going to go through. And there's a link to the Grok analysis, so you can go to it directly if you want to, but we'll put that in the video description. So if you look at the two things, so you've got Catholic social justice here on the left. It probably should be on the right. And critical social justice is on the other side. And you can see here the critical social justice, is rooted in critical theory, postmodernism, Kimberly Crenshaw, and intersectionality. Whereas Catholic social justice is rooted in the natural law, and if you just took the Catholic piece out of it, that's what it would be. It would just be what people would see as identifying the dignity of the human being, equality of all people, having justice and respect for all people, and taking particular consideration for the poor. Now, when you bring Catholic teaching into it, obviously you have Catholic scripture that it's also derived from, but it's also derived from science and fact. So that's really important. It's rooted in nature. It's rooted in biology, etc. So that kind of gives you an indication as to what the differences might be when we get to some other items here. So the view of the human person. Now, again, it's created in the image and likeness of God. That's the kind of Catholic or religious viewpoint of it. But the generic part of it would be that everyone has inherent equal dignity. The Catholic view people will have fallen, but are redeemable. So people can redeem themselves. There's a notion of original sin in Catholicism, but you can overcome that. With critical social justice, identity is shaped by power relations and group membership, your identity. And there's no redemption if you're a white privileged person. There's no coming back from that. The only way you can come back from that is by being anti-racist, be an ally, all those things. But you're still a white, heteronormative oppressor, basically. You sit in oppressor category. And you can see how this identity politics plays out. It puts a kind of a Marxist lens on everything. And that Marxist lens is very limiting. It has no nuance. And I'll give people an example. Irina Zelenska, who was killed, the Ukrainian lady who was killed, she was a migrant in the US, killed on a train by a Black American who had, mental health issues, severe mental health issues. Both of them could be classified in the oppressed categories, right? She's intersectionally oppressed. She's a migrant. She's a woman. He's intersectionally oppressed. He's got mental health issues, and he's a person of color.
That terrible stabbing on the train that day, it was on social media for 10 days before any mainstream or legacy media even touched it. 10 days with that brutal, savage murder of that Ukrainian who took asylum in the US, and 10 days before they reported on it. Tragedies when it involves the oppressed committing a crime. They want to completely avoid it and then vilify people who are protesting against it. It's
Yeah.
just
But you see,
it's really really
yeah,
horrific, and that's the problem. The way the media portrays everything, like as you said, oppressor, oppressed. That Marxist lens. You know, the media is captured by that
yeah.
lens.
And it's so limiting, Jana. This is the problem, you
Hmm.
see. So understanding of sin, right? So Catholic teaching says people can commit sin. There's right and wrong. There's a notion of right and wrong. There's a notion of truth and lie, right? And ultimately, it's personal. You see, the issue here is you take responsibility for your wrongdoing. You don't blame it on somebody else. Whereas in the
Yep.
Marxist thing, the oppressed person blames it on somebody else. They blame it on the oppressor.
Yep.
So there's always a get out clause, you see?
Yep.
It's a fundamental issue. This is the issue with critical social justice. This systemic oppression, as they call it, white privilege, based on gender. If you're a man, for example,
Hmm.
there's the male oppression, male privilege. There's heteronormative privilege. Because if you're heteronormative, you're oppressing people who aren't
Hmm.
heteronormative. You're cisgender, right?
There was a document we saw that had critical race theory was going to be brought into schools. There was a lot of pushback on it, but it said that you'll be privileged. You're considered privileged if you're white, male, or Irish. That was in the document: white,
I know,
male, or
I know.
Irish. Now, it didn't go in those terms to teach, for example, my son that he should be feel privileged that he's white, male, and Irish, but it went in other ways, and we've seen it in this other, oppressor cultural Marxism coming in. But anyone who knows anything about Irish history should know that Irish people shouldn't feel privileged about anything. Ireland was oppressed for 800 years under, Ireland never colonized another country. Ireland is neutral. Everybody loves the Irish. So how dare you tell an Irish boy in school that he should feel privileged for being white, male, or Irish? And then we see all over the media the toxic masculinity. Oh, you're a bad man because you have masculinity, and don't show your masculinity. It's toxic. Where a great discussion yesterday at the Battle of Ideas was, we need to teach boys to grow into be men. Where are the men out there? The radical
Yep.
feminists have emasculated the men and stripped them of their masculinity, so they're walking around, feeling that they can't be their masculine self. And then society is calling them toxic, and the media is calling them toxic. So, we're not encouraging our boys to grow into men, whereas we need to appreciate the femininity and the masculinity. They complement each other. It takes a man and a woman to procreate, and that's exactly what the establishment is trying to do: is break down the sexes.
It is, Jana. Now, we'll put a link in the description to a discussion on feminism or feminist
Mm-hmm.
theory, if I call it that, the Marxist feminist theory. And you see, so all of these feminist theorists in DCU and all the universities in Ireland and all the American universities, who are all Marxists, right? They're all radical Marxists, we know that. And because of their alignment with Islam right now, they will not criticize Islam for its behavior and its conduct with women and the treatment of women
Mm-hmm.
under Islam. It's gross hypocrisy. And it shows you the hypocrisy of critical social justice.
Yep.
Because critical social justice is everybody in the Western world who's white, for example, is an oppressor, is horrible, has got privileges, etc., etc. And everybody in the Eastern world, even though Islam attempted to dominate the world for centuries attempted to dominate the world, because they don't like to talk about history. I'm not getting at Muslims here, but I'm just trying to talk about facts. And critical social justice isn't based on facts. It's based on theory and Marxist ideology.
And to teach children in school that they should feel privileged or guilty for the color of their skin, that is just nonsense, or for their culture or their sexuality. No, every child in the classroom should be treated equal, with dignity, not made to feel guilt or shame because of how they're born. That is breeding racism in the classroom.
Yeah, and Jana, I think that, well, just let's, we do have a separate lecture. We did a full lecture which we'll publish and which covers the whole aspects of cultural Marxism.
Yep.
This is cultural Marxism, which is a psyop. It basically wants to tell everybody in the Western world that you're an oppressor, you're abusing the planet, you're using too much carbon dioxide, for example, so you have to cut back on all of that. You have to literally, they might as well say to you as a white person, just lie down and shoot yourself, because that's basically what they're trying to do. They're trying to do it through subversion. through psychological means using critical theory and the notion of critical social justice. And unfortunately, our universities have taken this fully on board, lock, stock and barrel. People are making careers based on this garbage. Now, a lot of them are communists and Marxists themselves, and it's all part of the revolution. But critical social justice, and we'll kind of see it later on too, that the whole notion of open borders, globalism, all that kind of thing. So look at the next thing here, the lens of justice, right? Look at the next fourth point, common good, solidarity, subsidiarity, and preferential option for the poor. And the point under Catholic social justice is the poor can be anybody. You could be a white person and still be poor, and you need to be given attention and preference for that. But that's not the way it is with critical social justice. They don't care about the poor white people because they're still oppressors, right? And we can see this in our own society, whereas the Marxists and the communists in our society, who happen to be middle class, most of them are middle class intelligentsia, and they look down their nose on the working class in Ireland. They absolutely look down their nose on them. Sinn Féin, who used to represent the working class, totally woke now. They're all into the whole critical social justice, so they don't care about anybody. They look down on nationalists, they look down on working class people. And that's because of this stupid ideology that they've all taken on board. You can see the thing, the critical social, dismantling hegemonic power structures, liberation of oppressed identity groups. See this thing, identity groups? See that they're trying to play the political card of identity groups all the time.
Yeah.
And they want a two-tier system, you see. And as we have a two-tier legal system where one identity group has a preference over others. They don't want equality. They want preference. And that's a scam. This is a scam. This is a political scam, Johnny. You got to understand it, because these people, the only thing communists and Marxists are interested in is power, and they'll do any way of doing it. And this way, critical social justice is a means for them to achieve power by using a psychological weapon on Western civilization, on Western Europeans, Judeo-Christian Western Europeans, who have probably shown the rest of the world how to have a proper civilization and treat women properly. It took us centuries to get there, but we got there. But some of these other places in the East haven't got there yet. They're still abusing women. They still treat women as second-class citizens, and they're being put out there as the oppressed, as it were. The people have to understand that critical social justice theory is not based on fact. It's not based on science. No. It's based on ideology, Marxist ideology, and a desire to achieve revolution and to achieve power and control. That's what's behind it. So once you cop onto that, you can see it, the garbage that it is. And unfortunately, so many people get taken in by it. There are people, I see people going around thinking, oh, maybe I have white privilege, ba-di-da-di-da. And they're not racists. They're not. They don't have white privilege. It's garbage. It's just garbage that's been put into their head by the media, by academia, and they're getting it in school now as well. And they get it everywhere. And it's been pumped into our society by UNESCO and the United Nations. Yeah. That's the other point.
And I always say to Eugene, when people like us are dead and gone, that's the reason they want to go after the youth. We've talked about, like, in our promo video for the campaign, that, Mao's China, Hitler's youth, if they can get them when they're young, that's going to be the full revolution and the changing the whole fabric of Ireland and every country in the West, if they can get them when they're young. And now we've seen that they're going after them age 5 primary school, and even some of the Astor material that we've showed down to age 3 and 4 in preschool. So get them when they're young, and the whole country will change, because there's no truer words than the children are our future.
Yep, exactly. So let's go through it here. Goal of justice, of course, was a rightly ordered society that enables every person to flourish and reach their eternal destiny. And again, it's people take responsibility. You take responsibility. You don't blame others. You don't use the excuse, or I'm oppressed. Oh, this that's my excuse, my get out of jail card, for the way I behave, right? And that I rob and steal, I tell lies, but that's because I'm oppressed. So it's not a sin. See the thing? Yep. This moral relativism, that's the notion of moral relativism that's been brought in. So this is hugely different. So somebody who follows Catholic social justice, or just social justice in its generic meaning that most people understand, critical social justice is totally different. And it's just purely Marxist ideologically based. So look at the other key principles here: human dignity, solidarity, the preference for the poor. We talked about that, and care for creation. But not an obsession with carbon usage and using that as a lever because that's again what the critical social justice people like to do. They like to use the whole environmental movement as a lever. And again, it's a lever that's targeting the West. It wants the West to decarbonize while the East doesn't decarbonize. And, and again, we know that the whole climate thing is falling apart, Jana, for very good reasons, because it's not based on truth, it's based on narrative, etc. It's coming from the critical social justice point of view. That's the way the whole climate stuff has been pushed in. And again, that's poor children are being given this in the neck, that they're the problem, that we're oppressing the planet.
And we've had parents contact us, Eugene, that their kids are suffering what's called eco-anxiety. I even spoke with a psychologist in the UK, and children who are feeling suicidal are suicidal because they feel that the planet is burning up, it's on fire, it won't be here for them as children, and they won't be able to have their own families because the Earth's going to just blow up. However, this isn't about keeping the Earth clean and green. This is about putting the fear and anxiety into children that the Earth's going to burn up and that there's a huge climate crisis.
The climate stuff at the moment is being used, it's been weaponized against Western civilization, and it's also been a mechanism for people to make billions on carbon credits. And where does the money come from? The taxpayer, you and I. It doesn't come from the stakeholders, as we, that Klaus Schwab and the WF stakeholders. It doesn't come from their pockets. It comes from our pockets, ultimately. We're paying too much for our power because of all this nonsense. So again, I don't want to spend too much time on that. Let's look at some of the other things here. Key principles: human dignity, solidarity, subsidiarity, again, a preference for the poor, dignity of work, right? The dignity of work, which is really important. Whereas if you look at critical social justice, it talks about equity. You see, communism, this is communism, right? So critical social justice is ultimately a manifestation of communism. Lived experience as authoritative. I'm sorry, your lived experience, my lived experience is as valuable as yours. Whether you're in a, what we should be interested in is the objective truth. And again, that's the issue with this postmodern concept of moral relativism. Oh, it's my experience, it's my gender, it's my thing. Oh, so you all have to go along with it. No, we go along with reality. We go along with truth, objective truth. Language policing. You see the whole thing about language policing, hate speech, because you're using language I don't like. You're telling me things that I don't want to hear, and that's hate speech, right? And then intersectionality, this notion of, oh, I'm a woman, I'm oppressed, I'm a woman of color, so I'm intersectionally oppressed. And then anti-racism as an ongoing struggle. Yeah, well, they should start the anti-racism problem in Africa, perhaps, or maybe in Asia, because that's where it's a particular problem. It's not a big problem in the Western world. It is. There are racists here. There's no doubt about that. But my goodness, the racism in other countries is off the charts, and it would. But of course, there's no discussion about that at all. Of course, nothing. The view of the family, natural foundational cell of society, one man, one woman, and open to life means having children. That the relationship is open to have. You don't have to have children, but in general, marriage should be open to people have children. Take a look at the other definition. It's seen as a site of patriarchal oppression. Gender and sexuality are fluid social constructs. So is there any surprise? Well, because that's what they teach in school now, right? The view of private property. Now watch this one. Universal destination of goods and right of private property, balanced. So people are entitled to have their private property. Now it's saying it's a balanced view. So you're not looking at people accumulating vast sums, when I would argue that we probably have some people on the planet at the moment who probably have accumulated too much and have too much power as a result, which is dangerous and is causing some of these problems. And then on the other side, you see private property often viewed with suspicion as a tool of capitalistic oppression. So in other words, you shouldn't have private property. Communism.
You'll own nothing and be happy, said the World Economic Forum.
Yeah. So again, those last two items are things from the Communist Manifesto, more or less. So the approach to disagreement. Now, disagreement, people, will disagree. We need to have dialogue. We need to put persuasive arguments on the table. We need to talk about facts. We need to do research, and we look for that truth is objective and knowable, right? The scientific method, right? we engage in that method and we attempt to find the truth and find when you're doing research, your research can evolve over time, but all the time you're focused on getting the objective truth. Oh no, look at the other one. Safety over free speech. Oh no, even if it's true, we don't want you saying it. Cancellations, deplatforming, harm. You're wounding me with your speech because of what you're saying. You're hurting me. Your speech is violent. This is the notion of critical social justice. Okay, the role of guilt and shame. Again, personal responsibility is a key part of religious faith in general. So people of any faith, usually it's my personal responsibility. I'm responsible for what I do, my actions, be they good, be they bad. I take accountability for them. I don't blame other people, etc. And then I repent and reconcile if I've done bad, right? That's what you do, right? And you try to be the best you can be. Look at the other one here, collective guilt of oppressor groups. So because you're white, it doesn't matter how good you are. Doesn't matter whether you're helping the poor every day and whatever it is. No, you're in an oppressor group, in this identity of an oppressor, right? So you're still a bad person. You've got the label on you, right? And they bring in this toxic masculinity, white fragility. Okay, we've seen those terms. The view of redemption. Okay, so this is quite a Catholic thing. So Christ died on the cross for our redemption. And grace perfects nature. So through your religious practice, through good practice, you assume grace, and that perfects you as a person. You get better as a person. You become kinder. You're able to actually deliver more. You're able to do more for other people, etc. As you develop. And again, it's down to you developing as a Catholic or a Christian. The other one is consciousness raising. Look at this, allyship and revolutionary praxis, right? So it's like, and there's no redemption, right? There's no transcendent redemption, right? Obviously there isn't. And this is the problem when it comes to the schools, Jana. When you take the ethos away from the school, you end up with the column here on the right-hand side, the critical social justice column. That's where you end up. At least if you keep the ethos, the Catholic ethos of a school, you try to keep the fundamentals of what the Catholic view of social justice is. And schools are allowed to do that under the Education Act. We just remind people of that point. The attitude towards tradition and institutions, you evolve these over time. It's possible to evolve them. Obviously, doctrine of the church doesn't really change that much because it's fundamental, and our understanding may evolve, but the fundamental doctrines won't change fundamentally. So there's a continuity and authority that's respected. On the other side, it's the church and family. These are all inherently oppressive institutions. Obviously, the church, etc. Traditional institutions, the family is oppressive, and again, that comes from the Communist Manifesto. We'll do another podcast on that, perhaps. The documents, they talk about the documents here. Obviously, the documents of faith from the Catholic perspective, the Bible. They don't mention the Bible here. They should do, etc. It mentions some of the documents coming from the Vatican, but the Catechism, for example, is an important document. So there's multiple documents associated with the Catholic Church. If you look at the documents from the critical Marxist, critical social justice side, it comes from Karl Marx, Herbert Marcuse, Paulo Freire, Richard Delgado. You can see this, right? It's these people, right? The critical pedagogues, the critical theorists, etc. And the real the race baiters, as I call them, people like Kendi and D'Angelo, who literally make their money out of this stuff, right? They make their money out of telling people they've got white privilege or white fragility. And then we've got the stance on abortion. And the stance from the Catholic Church is that it's intrinsically evil, and direct abortion is always gravely immoral. And you notice the term direct abortion there. The difference is the act attempting to save the mother and save her life and her well-being, versus is it a deliberate act? The mother is not in any sort of peril, and you literally are just destroying the fetus, the child. That's the difference. And unfortunately, our legislators have conflated that, and there's no limitation now, and it's for any reason you like, for as long as you like. You can even in some countries now, children are being literally slaughtered after they've been born.
Yeah.
infanticide, right? And that's been allowed for, and that's quite fine. That's okay for all the critical social justice people, because they don't see that the unborn child has any rights. They don't see that the unborn child is perhaps oppressed. No, it doesn't fit into that identity category. So again, that's that one. Same-sex marriage. In the Catholic Church, the marriage is between man and woman, and obviously people will disagree with that. In the case of critical social justice, it's whatever you're having yourself. It's durable relationships, as we know from the referendum last year, and what is, there could be 2 or 3 people, different genders, whatever it is, right? And political posture generally avoids ideological captivity. So this is the point. In Catholic social justice, you keep the politics out of it. It has no room in Catholic social justice. That's the fundamental tenet. And that's the reason, again, to keep that Catholic ethos in your school, to keep the politics out of the classroom. The other one is strongly aligned with progressive left-wing politics, liberalism, etc. And again, I go back to the point. People who like to throw stones at the Catholic Church or Catholic teaching or Catholic schools right now, the teaching in those schools, the only ideology that's been brought into the classroom now, unless a child is consciously preparing for the sacraments, for example, and you're in a religious class, which people can opt out of, and that opting out in a Catholic school is 100% respected and catered for and allowed for, because it's understood that we're a mixed society now with people who either have no faith or people of Muslim faith or other faiths, Jewish, Protestant, whatever. And that's 100% respected in Catholic schools. They go out of their way to respect that. What you can't get away from in Irish schools now is the critical social justice indoctrination, which has been brought into every subject through the whole school approach and through the anti-bullying policy. See the problem?
Yeah.
So the issue isn't that you've got a Catholic school and the subjects are contaminated with Catholic teaching or something. That doesn't happen anymore. And it never happened even in my time. But the critical social justice stuff is contaminating everything, and we can see how toxic it is. So I think, Jana, people need to understand this. We'll have links in the description. Read this thing through. That's why you need to understand the term critical theory, critical social justice, and critical pedagogy, because nobody in the NCCA is going to tell you. Nobody in the any of the groups that claim to be representing the NPC, the National Parents Council, do you think they're going to tell you the difference between critical social justice and Catholic?
They may not even know. The ones doing those webinars for parents, they may not even know themselves. They may have their own empathy weaponized to think it's all kind, progressive, and inclusive. And we're seeing all of this stuff that you just presented, Eugene. We're seeing it in the school books, in the classroom, this whole social justice, which social justice is a word that years ago I would have thought, that's a lovely word. Who doesn't want social justice? It's all about being fair and right. But when we peel back the layers, they have hijacked it, and it's not fair. It's not right. It's not kind, inclusive, progressive, or anything they claim it to be. It's about, indoctrinating children, making our children in the classroom feel oppressed, to feel guilt and shame because of their culture, their race, the color of their skin. And no child in any classroom anywhere should be made to feel guilty, shamed, oppressed, or privileged. They should be treated equal with dignity and be in the classroom to learn.
Yep. So again, now this is me. I'm going to talk, and you can disagree. People can disagree with me in the comments. That's fine. I'll take it. You can see that critical social justice is Marxism. It's inspiring revolution. The end game is communism. We saw it. We can see the comments related to the family and related to private property. That's communism, right? Now, people mightn't understand all the terminology, and they mightn't, to be honest, the way it's taught and the way that people get this in the teacher training, it's done through subversion. That's what cultural Marxism does. It introduces this stuff into the education system in a way that people probably don't understand it fully. Even the term progressive, Jana, the term progressive for me is communism, because the modern meaning of it, if you look at the definitions of what people see as a progressive society, it tends to be a technocratic, communistic society. It's got all these controls on you, and the family is not respected. National borders aren't respected. Private property and privacy aren't respected. That's progressive. I don't think that's progressive at all. I think that's
No.
abuse of the word, and there's nothing progressive about that. There's nothing
And you can be
progressive
sure
about
the
telling us.
ones that are telling us not to travel, not to eat meat, and not
Yeah.
to drive cars, they're flying their private jets. They own their own big mansions, and they're out eating what they want. They want a different society for the common people like us. These are these global, I know people call them the global elites. I call them the global parasites because they're trying to feed off the ordinary common person. And, you know, they're not living the life they want all of us to live.
No, no. And unfortunately, what's happening with the indoctrination, the critical social justice indoctrination, we saw evidence of it with the Charlie Kirk killing.
Yeah.
The point wasn't that a person on the left, a radical on the left, shot Charlie Kirk. That's not the point. The point is the reaction of people to the killing of Charlie Kirk. We saw, I think I saw it the other day. There was over a million videos of people proclaiming and celebrating his shooting, the shooting of Charlie Kirk, laughing about it, being, oh, it's fantastic, wonderful. That's the issue. That's the problem. And so those people were all on the left, but these were all people who were radicals. They were indoctrinated in their schools and universities by their professors, by their teachers, and by online as well. And the kind of militant radicalism is on the rise. And we'll do a podcast on that in the new year, and that should open a few people's eyes, because I'll tell you, you don't know half of what's going on, folks, in America right now. And we certainly don't want that to be brought into this country with our children getting radicalized with these ideologies. There's no place in our schools or our universities. They're absolutely dangerous. They're deadly. They harm young people. They destroy lives. Ultimately, they destroy people's lives. We have another video, Jana, which hasn't been posted yet, but it'll be the one regarding the consequences of a woke education. And we talk about some of that in that video. You know, people can argue about what points are here and some of the detail, but the fundamentals, and I could certainly, there's things that are missing from this that I would add into it. But fundamentally, I think it's captured it pretty well. And the input I got from ChatGPT and from Google Gemini were very roughly similar to, you can argue over individual points and some points of detail, but the fundamental outline is not changed, right? It is what it is. And I don't think anybody can disagree with that.
Great.
Okay, that's it, Jana.
Thanks, Eugene. And everyone, please do like, share, and subscribe, and comment your feedback. Have a great night.